everyone, welcome to YesterKitchen. I'm Jill, and I've got something so cool for you today. Well, it is cool, but I have something cool for you every time. But anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. So soup on the rocks, what is that? Well, it was a very little known, short-lived food fad, right between the 50s and the 60s. Didn't get a lot of attention, got some, but it was really good. And I decided it's time to bring it out again and let some new people find out about it. So what is soup on the rocks? Well, I'm gonna show you. In 1955, the Campbells company, shout out to Campbells, I hope they see this video, they came up with something called soup on the rocks. Their intention was to mimic an alcoholic drink that wasn't alcoholic. So this way you can go to a party, you can drink your soup on the rocks and no one will know. I don't know, back then I guess it was important that they saw you drinking alcohol, but this way no one knows. So soup on the rocks was advertised as a replacement for like whiskey on the rocks. I'm gonna show you the ad right now. Isn't that fabulous? That's exactly the ad that was in, well, it's off of my printer, but that was the ad. And I'm gonna show you how to make soup on the rocks. It is so easy. There is no measuring. There is a little option. You can do whatever you want. Let's see. All you do is you take a glass and you put ice in it, right? That's your rocks. Here, it's fancy, but it's right out of the can, Campbell's beef broth. And you pour just as much as you want. Look how cute that is, right? And then you add a little bit of fresh, I'm gonna keep saying fresh because you don't want the bottled stuff, fresh lemon juice. Just kind of squeeze a little bit. Give it a taste. You want more? Add more. Start with a little because you can't take lemon juice out. And then you want a dash of Worcestershire. The magazine actually says, I'm spilling dash. But I like Worcestershire. And then mix it on up. We have our cute little lemon because we want to make it look like a cocktail. That's it. Here it is. 1955, Campbell's Soup on the Rocks. And actually, it's really good. And it's so economical, it's worth a try. You never know. So that's Soup on the Rocks. And now we're going to talk about how Soup on the Rocks morphed into a first course. How did that happen? Let me tell you. So we started out with the Soup on the Rocks, this one that we just made. And then from there, the Campbell's company created about 10 drinks. They called them cocktails a la discotheque. And discotheque, it was precursor to discos, but this was before the discos, so it really was a discotheque, which in French means library of phonograph records, which eventually morphed into clubs. And so they got into a few of these clubs with 10 of their drinks, and they were either beef broth based or tomato soup based. Tomato soup kind of had like either club soda and went the fizz direction or went the Bloody Mary direction. And then beef broth also had club soda added to it or a few other things. But they were okay. They didn't really take off, but they actually had a little fad. But some chefs noticed these drinks and thought, why don't I turn these drink ideas with the same name, the On the Rocks, into a first course? And it kind of made its way into 1966. And this recipe is from 1966. It's called Tomato and Herb Soup on the Rocks. And I'm gonna make it for you. It's so easy and it's really good. So the first thing you wanna do is you wanna start with, let me do a little bit of business first because I'm gonna forget. And I need to please ask you that if you really like what you're seeing, hit the subscribe button and then hit the notification bell. And every time I release a video, you'll know about it. I'm also gonna put my recipe down below in the description as always. And if you try my recipes or if you have stories from your childhood that you wanna share about the 50s, 60s, 70s, or earlier, put them in there. I love to read your comments. They just make me so happy. And I think that's about it. So if I remember any more, I'll let you know later. But anyway, back to our tomato and herb soup on the rocks. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take a bouillon cube. Yes, they still sell them and they are salt bombs. but this is the recipe. So we have a beef bouillon cube, which is right in here, and it's into a half a cup of boiling water. And you want to let it cool a little bit. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our bowl right from the 60s. Isn't this fabulous? And we're going to add a cup and a half of tomato juice. And then we're going to add our cooled down beef bouillon. And we're going to stir it around a little bit. And now we're going to add a half of a grated onion. Yes, grated. It just gives a more subtle flavor than you're not crunching on onion pieces. How do you grate an onion, Jill? Just like cheese. It's just an onion. If you don't feel like grating an onion, you can probably get away with mincing your onion very, very fine, but the whole idea is to have it kind of melt into the soup and not crunching on it, because you'll be crunching on other vegetables that aren't as pungent as onions. So, into our soup, the onions go. Then, we're gonna add a half a cup of very finely chopped celery. And now we're gonna add a half of a green pepper, also super finely chopped. Here, you can see. See how finely I chopped that green pepper? Same as the celery. You wanna get that in there. It's starting to look like a gazpacho, but it's not a gazpacho. It's soup on the rocks. The seasonings are a little different. And we're truly gonna put this over ice. So we've got that, and now we're gonna add our garlic. The garlic addition is very interesting. We're gonna take our little garlic. Never cut towards yourself. Don't watch what I'm doing. But you're gonna cut it in half. I put here. And you're gonna put a toothpick through it. Just like that. And in she goes. I guess they wanted it a very subtle garlic, which is fine. So you just kind of mix that in there. Don't worry, you're gonna take it out after. And then you're gonna add a half a teaspoon of salt. I know tomato juice is salty, and I know the bouillon is a salt bomb, but I've made this before without the salt because I thought there's too much salt here, and it needed a little salt. So in goes a half teaspoon of salt. I've measured a million times. If you're not sure, use a measuring spoon. And we're gonna mix that up. Okay. Now, here's the thing. We're gonna make a pretend game. We're gonna pretend this is sitting overnight because it needs to sit overnight. So while this is sleeping and it's all overnight and everything, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about the 60s. So in the 60s, dinner parties, they were huge. People, they spent so much time preparing. It wasn't like, hey, come on over for dinner. They spent time preparing. They did their menu, they did their shopping. Come to think of it, that's what I do now. Oh well. But that was huge back in the day. And they invited their friends over, very, very carefully selected the guest list. And when people came over for dinner, they dressed up. Guys would actually wear a suit and tie. Women would wear dress, sometimes put their hair up. And everything was just very formal and very fancy. And it was kind of a little fun competition who can out-nice everyone else. And the hostess would actually put place cards at every setting at the table. So sometimes she'd have fun and mix up the guests so you can force conversation and make new friends. And it was also a time where besides dinner parties, a different kind of guest would show up. The boss would come home for dinner. The husband would bring his boss home for dinner, and that was a big deal because you got to impress the boss. I don't know of anyone that does that anymore, but if you do, please put it in the comments. I would love to hear about it. There was another time where it was a time where friends would just drop in for dinner. Like, who does that anymore? Well, tell me about it if you do. But I have never experienced anyone just showing up at dinner time, but people did. And the hostess, it was just important for her to always be ready for any situation. So the 60s, the dinner parties, they were amazing. People smoked in the house. They always began with cocktails. It was just a different time, and it was a really cool time. And now our story is over, and we're gonna pretend like our soup is just waking up in the morning. Hello, soup. How are you doing? So our soup has spent the night in the fridge, covered, onions, garlic. You don't want that in the rest of your food. And the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna fish out, there it is, our little garlic. And now we've got a few other things to add, and our soup will be ready. So the first thing we're gonna add is 1/4 of a cucumber thinly sliced. And the reason you're not doing this overnight is because the things I'm gonna add now can kind of break down a little too much, and you want them fresh and crisp in the soup. So, in go our happy little cucumbers. And now we're gonna get to the herb portion of our tomato and herb soup on the rocks. You can use any herb you want. You want about 2 tablespoons. I have a little more. The recipe calls for 2 tablespoons. I am huge into fresh herbs, so I'm gonna throw in a little bit more. This is parsley, fresh dill, fresh chives. Fresh parsley, obviously. So that's what I like. And in they go. You can use savory, you can use basil, you can use any fresh herb that sounds great to you. The only thing I wouldn't do is I wouldn't use any strong herbs or very wooded herbs. Like I wouldn't use rosemary because people will be picking it out of their mouth. And I wouldn't, because you're not cooking it, so it's gonna stay in that full hard wooded form. I also would probably shy away from cilantro, even though I love cilantro. It's a very strong herb, and you want herbs with more subtle flavors. So back to our soup. So we're gonna mix this up. And we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of fresh, I'm gonna drive you crazy, fresh lemon juice. And hot pepper sauce. You know the one. If you are a big spicy food fan, add more. If you're not, add less. This one's subjective. The original recipe says a dash of hot pepper sauce. I love spice, so I add more. But if you don't want it, you can leave it out even if you want. This is also a make a recipe the way you like it. Look at this beautiful thing. And the last thing we're gonna add is 1 thinly sliced tomato. I take the tomato, cut the whole thing in half, and then thinly slice it. So I have these halves, little half moons. And in they go. Look at that. How beautiful is that? Okay. Now I know you're saying, where's the rocks? Trust me, give me a chance. So we're gonna move all this over. And we have our cute little bowl. Now, soup on the rocks. The reason I say this makes 6 1/2 cup servings, because a 1/2 cup is a nice size for an appetizer or first course. If you want more, give more, double the recipe. But another reason, our friend the ladle, it's a 1/2 cup. It's perfect, right? But this is not in stone. So what you want to do is you want to take your bowl. You want to take a couple things of ice. I'll show you in the close-up camera. You want to take a couple things of ice. Let's give it a couple things of ice. And then you want to, I'm going to move this over, put this down. And you want to scoop a glorious, whoa, I'm trying to do it this way. There we go. Put your little spoon in there. And there you have it. Soup on the rocks. How beautiful is that? Why on the rocks? Well, it was trendy. It was coming off of this fad of drinks on the rocks, the soup on the rocks drinks. It was fancy. It was, ooh, look at that. It was considered very modern, and it kept the soup cold. I mean, it's a cold soup, kept it cold. And because you're serving it immediately, your soup's not gonna water down. It's the ice cubes will outlive the soup, I promise you. It's delicious. Give it a try. And let's see. I think that's it for today. You have a great day. Try the soup, have a dinner party, dress up, make place cards, live in the 60s, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you so much for coming to YesterKitchen. And remember, history never tasted so good.